Ron Alcoholic? The 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all people we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and medication to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will and the power to carry that out. And 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs.
Thanks, Ron. I've asked Ron B. to read the tradition of the month.
Perfect. Okay. Good evening, I'm Ron. I'm an alcoholic. To those now in its fold, Alcoholics Anonymous has made the difference between misery and sobriety, and often the difference between life and death. AA can, of course, mean just as much to uncounted alcoholics not yet reached. Therefore, no society of men and women ever had a more urgent need for the continuous effectiveness and permanent unity. We alcoholics see that we must work together and hang together, else most of us will finally die alone. The 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous are, we AAs believe, the best answers that our experience has yet given to those ever-urgent questions. How can AA best function? And how can AA best stay whole and so survive? Each AA group needs each AA group needs the least possible organization. Rotating leadership is the best. The small group may elect its secretary, the large group its rotating committee, and the groups of a large metropolitan area their central or intergroup committee, which often employs a full-time secretary. The trustees of the General Service Board are, in effect, our AA General Service Committee. They are the custodians of our AA tradition and the receivers of voluntary AA contributions by which we maintain our AA General Service Office at New York. They are authorized by the groups to handle our overall public relations, and they guarantee the integrity of our principal newspaper, the AA Grapevine. All such representatives are to be guided in the spirit of service, for true leaders in AA are but trusted and experienced servants of the whole. We derive no real authority from their titles. They derive no real authority from their titles. They do not govern. Universal respect is the key to their usefulness.
Thanks, Ron. This group places emphasis on helping new people feel welcome. During the break and after the meeting, please take a moment to welcome our newcomers. As a group, please make sure they do not leave without a newcomer packet. Is there anyone here for their first, second, or third AA meeting ever who thinks they may have a drinking problem? If so, would you please stand and introduce yourself by your first name? Is there anyone else in their first 30 days of sobriety? Would you please stand and introduce yourself?
My name is Chad. I'm an alcoholic.
Is there anyone attending tonight that hasn't already introduced himself, that is visiting or new to the Three Legacies group? If so, would you care to stand and tell us your name and the name of your home group?
Hi, I'm Mindy. I'm an alcoholic, and I just came here from Redding, California, so I'm new here today.
Welcome. Nice to have you.
Tonight's format is we have a 10-minute guest speaker, a 5-minute presentation on the step, tradition, or concept of the month, and a 40-minute guest speaker sharing on what they were like, what happened, and what they're like now. Please help me to welcome our first speaker tonight from the WFS Group, Denise T.
Thank you. Carrie, thanks for asking me to be here tonight. And I was taught to, when you get an opportunity to share, to not say no. And it was a good way to get me to come check out your meeting. So, I'm Denise. I'm an alcoholic. My home group is WFS, which is Wednesday, Friday, Sunday group. My sobriety date is 1/7/8, and I have a sponsor, and she has a sponsor, and I have sponsees, and I do service work. And I'm really grateful for this program. And I think when I talked to Carrie about, what I could share, and she said, for 10 minutes, it's not really that much time, so maybe just, a topic or something that an experience has happened. And I was just thinking, that's kind of good timing because I have had a few experiences happen that have really made me commit to my program even more. And, thank God for this program, and I feel so lucky that I'm sober today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a few things out of the big book because I know that I can't go wrong if I read something out of there. And I know this isn't like when I share it, I always tell my sponsor I'm really nervous, and she's like, don't be nervous, just, it's not about you. So it's not about me, it's about me sharing something that maybe will help someone else. That's all I can hope for, it's something I say. So the first thing I want to kind of go over is, and this kind of, what I found in the big book relates to my experience that I have had. And the first one comes out of the doctor's opinion, and it says, all these and many others have one symptom in common. They cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. This phenomenon, as we have suggested, may be the manifestation of an allergy, which differentiates, you guys know what I'm talking about, these people, and then sets them apart as a distinct entity. So there it's talking about the allergy of the body, and that was kind of the first, to go back a little bit, my first attempt at getting sober was 1988, and I feel like I finally surrendered to this horrible disease in 2008. So I had quite a few ins and outs and experiences, and didn't get it and didn't understand what AA was, and I finally grasped that. But that always made me feel like, okay, now I get it. I'm different. I have this allergy. I'm not like a normal drinker, and I hated that because I always wanted to be a normal drinker. I thought I tried so many times to go out and drink, like a lady, and it never happened. It got to the point where, I would have a drink and I'd never know how the rest of the night would end. And that was scary. I started having blackouts more frequently, and, when I finally surrendered to this disease, I got back with my sponsor. So when I lived here in Bend, to back up a little bit, I had 2.5 years, and I thought I was done then. And I had 2.5 years, but what I didn't do is I didn't let anyone really get to know me in the program. I kind of held everybody at bay. I do work with my sponsor, but, just to make her happy. And just thought, and I had a home group, and it was, but one thing I didn't have that I know I have now is a higher power. And I didn't have a connection, and I didn't let people get to know me. I didn't have that unity, which is really important. And so when I came back, I started working the steps. I got connected with my sponsor, and I got real. I got real with and honest with myself. I still remember the day that I decided to be done it was like that moment of clarity, of like, what are you doing? This isn't the life you're supposed to be living. You're going to kill someone. You're going to kill your kids. You're going to lose your job. All those things that hadn't happened yet were hitting me all at once. And I was like, I just had this moment of just like, I can't do this anymore. This isn't the life I'm supposed to live. And so then I came back into AA. And what I found is on chapter 2, page 17, there's a part that talks about being together on a ship, like we've all been saved and we're all on the ship together. And it says, but there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness and understanding which is indescribably wonderful. We are like the passengers of a great liner. The moment after rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness, democracy pervade the vessel from steerage to captain's table, unlike feelings of the ship's passengers. Then it says, however, our joy in escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. The feeling of having shared in common peril is one element in the powerful cement which binds us. But that in itself would never have held us together as we are now joined. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism. And it says, an illness of this sort, we have come to believe it is an illness, involves those about us in no way no other human sickness can. If a person has cancer, all are sorry for him and no one is angry or hurt. But so not with the alcoholic illness, for with it there goes annihilation of all things worthwhile in life. It engulfs all whose lives touch the sufferers. It brings misunderstanding, fierce resentment, financial insecurity, disgusted friends, employers, warped lives of blameless children, sad wives, parents. Anyone can increase the list. So this just goes on to share about, our disease. It's so about us, but it's not about us. It's about us and myself hurting everyone else, and we don't see that until we get a little bit clearer. But what I found is that, when I came into this program, I was able to work the steps, and I truly believe that the steps changed me from the inside out as a person. It's helped me. It's given me that design for a living. Even though I've had over 10 years, it's like, I still call my sponsor. I still work with my sponsees, and I still go to meetings. I still do service work because I know, and I'll share the one experience that happened to you, that happened to me, that I know I'm still an alcoholic, and it's a scary, cunning, baffling, powerful disease. So, just to share with you, I went on, some of you may have heard this, and I'm sorry if you've heard it, but I was with a friend, and we went on a hike, and he knows that I don't drink, and he knows how long I've had, and it just goes to show you that normal people don't get this. And he's like, hey, I brought this nice bottle of wine. I know you don't drink, but you have to taste it. It's just so good. You just got to put your finger in it. I'm like, oh, that wouldn't hurt. That was my first thought. That wouldn't hurt, just a finger. Get it, that'll make him happy, make him go away. And I didn't say anything, and then we get up there, and he's got this nice little lunch packed, and we're sitting by the little river, and it's a beautiful day, and he has 2 glasses, and he pours a little wine in my cup, and just says, here, you just got to try a sip. And I have to tell you, you guys, I was like, I put my hand in the cup, I put it to my lips, and I felt the burn, and I put it down immediately. It's like that saying in the book, you recoil from like a hot flame. I swear to God, I put it down, and my head's just going, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Throw it off to the side. And then I thought, well, if I throw it off to the side, he's going to put more in because he's going to think I drank it. And so I finally was like, okay, this is where I have a tattoo that says, to thine own self be true. And it has my date on it. And I thought, I cannot ruin that. I could not. And then I thought, can't give that up. And then I thought, the most important is be to my own self be true. Who am I fooling here? So I thought, I'm the one that would be lying to myself. So I finally just said to him, I says, I won't drink this. And then he was like, oh, this is the best part. oh, well, I would never let you drink. I mean, I would never let you drink more than you need to. You know, and I looked at him and I go, do you really think you can control me? I'm like, you don't know me. And he goes, really? And I was like, yeah. And then I had to go and explain to him about the allergy. I finally had to break it down and say, I have an allergy, and this is what happens to me. And I still don't know if he got it, but anyway, it didn't matter. At least the wine was gone. And we're hiking down, and he was sharing about how he got roofied or something, and how he never had an experience like that, and he kind of blacked out. And I looked at him, I go, have you ever blacked out? And he's like, no. He goes, have you? And I'm like, every time I drink. So it's like, yeah, so it's like that was such an experience. I left there thinking, oh my God, thank you, God, for, giving me strength. And I have to share that the spiritual part of this meeting, or this recovery, has saved my life. And I know that I have a higher power. And before I went on that hike, I said a prayer. I got on my knees and I thanked my higher power for my sobriety. And I swear, all we really have is a daily reprieve from this disease. Doesn't matter how much time you have. All we have is a daily reprieve. I know that my higher power is there with me, because why wouldn't I just taste that? And I know that one taste, maybe I could have one and fool myself, but it starts the obsession. And I know I'm going to be back at it. And I'm just like so grateful to, for all the people that are in my life, for my home group, for my sponsees, that showed up to listen to me tonight, and for all the wonderful women and men that I've met in this program. And that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Denise. A member of our group will now present on the tradition, right? Yeah. Of the month. Please help me to welcome Carrie.
Hi, I'm Carrie. I'm an alcoholic. Tradition 9, y'all! So I went, so the first week of the month was Concept 9. Last week we talked about Step 9, and I got to do it out of my big book, which is very uncomfortable for me. I'm not a step talker. For those of you who know me, I don't normally speak on the steps. So now I'm in my comfort zone. Tradition 9. My favorite thing to talk about, the traditions, and this is probably one of my favorite traditions to talk about, because it's one of the most misunderstood traditions. So I am going to talk about two little words in the short form, which has these around it, I think. As such, let's check, make sure I'm telling the truth here. Tradition 9, AA, comma, as such, comma. Why don't they just say AA? I'm going to read the short form. Why don't they just say AA ought never be organized, and we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve? What does as such mean? Well, I'm going to tell you. So, the traditions, the 12 Traditions for Dummies, which is this illustrated coloring book that I like to use because that's how I roll, has on the last page of Tradition 9, the last sentence, Tradition 8, the very last sentence, because all these traditions, they're in order for a reason, just like the steps are, and they bleed into one another. And Tradition 8 at the very bottom says, now wait a minute, some old timer may interrupt at a business meeting, this always happens. What's going on here? Didn't Dr. Bob say, let's keep it simple? Ha, then we get to turn the page, and we can read this to that old timer. So, the words, let's keep it simple, were the last Bill W. heard from his fellow founder of AA shortly before Dr. Bob's death in 1950. That's true. Aware that it means our recovery program, Bill later wrote, we need to distinguish sharply between spiritual simplicity and functional simplicity. When we get into questions of actions by groups, by areas, and by AA as a whole, we find that we must organize to carry the message, or else we face chaos, and chaos is not simplicity. When Tradition 9 speaks of as such, and it does do this in this book, It goes to the heart of Alcoholics Anonymous, to the spiritual simplicity of one alcoholic saying silently, perhaps, help, and another alcoholic answering, I know how you feel. We're here to help you. Such a relationship could not be organized. So that's basically telling me that we don't do, we don't have scripts. So if somebody if I got called on a 12-step call, I don't show up at their door like, a Jehovah's Witness or somebody with a clipboard in my hand and knock, and when the door's open, I am not like, hi, my name is Carrie from Alcoholics Anonymous, and I am an alcoholic. It works if you work it. That's not how I do my 12-step work. That's not AA as such. That could hardly, we speak the language of the heart in all of its power and simplicity. We speak the language of the heart when in our AA work as such. However, in the business meetings, whether it's at your home group, whether it's at inner group, whether it's at district, whether it's on a committee, if we're not organizing who's making the coffee, like somebody's not going to get coffee, and that's going to break chaos. All chaos is going to break loose. Like that is not simplicity, And so there's a sharp distinction between the spiritual side of the program, the AA as such, and the functional side of the program that has allowed us 83 years of Alcoholics Anonymous, because those who have come before me wrote these traditions, and even more so these 12 concepts that allow us to organize our service structure and to help to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers outside of not just this group and this country, but in other places in the world. I mean, we are in 181 countries worldwide today because of organization. Because of 12-step work that is taken outside of the group, beyond the group. And so, that's my pitch for Tradition 9. Thanks.
We will now observe our seventh tradition. The money we contribute into the basket is used for rent, supply, literature, and also to help carry the AA message outside of the group. If you are new or visiting when you are a guest, then you are our guest, and we ask that you not feel obligated to contribute. Okay, let's see. Next week's main speaker. Next week is our September birthdays meeting, and we have Jack K. celebrating 27 years, David C. celebrating 9 years, and Ed M. celebrating 28 years. We'll have birthday cake, raffle, sobriety countdown, cool prizes, fun, and fellowship. We have flyers on the literature table and invite you to take one with you back to your home group. I will now turn the floor over to home group members for additional announcements, birthdays, and anniversaries.
This is the last month. This is our last month as a meeting. This group may or may not reformulate in the future, but at this point, for a number of reasons, AA Unity being first and foremost, we will no longer meet after the end of this month. We will all be looking for new home groups after the end of the month. We would like to thank our regular attendees, Mike, Ron, Becky, all of you guys have been amazing. We would like to, thank our regular attendees for your unbelievable love and support. I'll stick to the script. These past 5 months, it really has been a huge pleasure getting to know all you guys. If you are interested in helping to reformulate the Three Legacies speaker group in the future, please let one of us know, and we will add you to the private Facebook group that has already existed for just home group members only up until this point. This way, if we have enough support in a year from now and would like to revisit starting up again, you will be in the loop and have the opportunity to get involved. For more information, visit threelegacies.com. That's spelt out THREELEGACIES.com. In the meantime, the show must go on. So we have a big book on the literature table that we ask you to sign for the newcomer who doesn't have a book yet. That's back there. If you haven't signed the fresh big book, because we've been giving them out as we get newcomers who don't have books, just write something special in there or underline a favorite passage. Ron's doing it right now, taking the lead. All right. Also on the literature table, you will find free pamphlets and other resources. No, somebody took our pamphlet rack, so we don't have pamphlets tonight because we don't want to be too organized. Let's see. But you will find upcoming events, including September milestone meeting that will be held here next week. Please take a flyer with you as you leave to share. Oh, please take a flyer with you as you leave to share with your group. They look like this, only a little bit bigger, and they're back there by Ron. We have the study edition big book for sale at cost. Pocket editions are $5, large print are $6. If you would like to purchase a big book, see me at the break or after the meeting. The Oregon Area Assembly is coming up this next weekend in Welches, Oregon, only 2-hour drive from here, held at the resort of the mountain. If you would like to attend, see your group's GSR for more information, or our bulletin board back there on the literature counter has a flyer and a registration form on it. Feel free to take that. It's the last one, but it's next weekend, so if you want more information, take that from the bulletin board. AA History Workshop, October 27th from 12:30 to 4:30, District 5 will be hosting this. So if you have a home group and you contribute into your home group's basket, and your home group has a GSR and is connected to AA as a whole, you've already paid for this stuff, so you might as well come and enjoy the food, right? So food, fellowship, fun, it's all for free. Well, you've already paid for it. So Area Archives will be there with a display and a presentation. District 5 Archives Chair Valerie will also be giving a presentation on the history of the big book, and Riley Kay, with over 50 years of sobriety, will be talking about her early days in AA. This is an experience you must not miss. Again, October 27th in Brooks Hall, upstairs at TEC. Also, WFS has the Wednesday, Friday, Sunday group has a fellowship night on the second Sunday of every month. After their meeting, they provide pizza and soda, and Friday night they had ice cream cones, and it was a great time, and we usually play very inappropriate games, and it's a fun time. So second Friday after the book study, and that's a regular meeting I usually attend, is Friday night book study, one of my very favorites. And so feel free to show up and crash the party. All are welcome. Thank you.
My name is Larry, and I'm alcoholic, and I'm the greeter chair. New people, if you like to be of service and are ready to suit and show up, greeting is a great opportunity to get to know people. Get out of your comfort zone a little bit and be of service. You don't need to be a home group member to be a greeter. Just simply see me at the break or after the meeting for details, and I'll get you signed up. Thanks for letting me be of service, and seeing as we have the birthday meeting next, I believe that's our last meeting. It's only a one-night commitment, so if you want to come and show up and greet, you don't have to commit to one night, and it's a great deal. Hopefully it's a big one. Hopefully we're in big. And then also, I am the cleanup chair, so if I could get 3 volunteers to help me clean up after the meeting. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much, and come see me after the meeting, and thanks for being of service.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Larry. She told me to wait till everyone's in their seat. To begin this meeting again, please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, please join me in welcoming our main speaker tonight from the East Side Early Risers Group, Dave G.
It's like my blanket, you know. I'm Dave G. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Dave. And how many people here have less than a year of sobriety? Can I ask that question? Well, I hope I say something that might help you on your road to recovery. You know, I still have my 30-day coin. Probably one of the most important things I ever got. Been sober for 30 days in a row. My sobriety date is April 4th, 1988. So I got a little over 30 years now sobriety. I got sober when I was 34 years old, and I'm 65 years old now. And the longer you stay sober, the younger you think you were when you got sober, because 34 seems like a long time ago. But you know, great events have come to pass for me, you know, in my sobriety. I want to introduce the group to my wife, Kay, and she's an Earth lady, you know, just one of us normal people on the Earth, and we've known each other for 51 years. We've known each other, and we've been married now for a little over 5 years. We've lived in Bend for 2 years now. We bought a house here 5 years ago when we got married. But we were boyfriend and girlfriend when we were 14 years old. And 8 years ago, we got back together, and we've been married now for 5 years. And I remember asking Kay early in our dating if she was going to be okay by being no better than third in my life. She says, "What do you mean?" I go, "Well, for me, it's AA, God, and then everything else is tied for third." And she says, "I'm okay with that." She pretty much got third all by herself right now. And God and AA are real close together, but I have to put AA before God. Because, see, God speaks to me in like Chinese, and AA was able to help me understand how to live a life with a higher power. And so I'm forever grateful for AA for that I've been able to create this God of my own understanding. But I have to put AA even a little above God, because I'm an alcoholic. And if I quit going to meetings and I start to rely only on God to keep me sober, because I'm an alcoholic, I will create a God that will buy me my first beer. So that's why I continue to go to AA after 30 years. My home group, Eastside Early Risers, I sponsored Terry L. I sponsored some guys. You know, it's the most important thing I do. You know, April 4th, 1988, this is my first attempt at sobriety. You know, I heard early on that relapse is not a requirement of sobriety, and I grabbed hold of that thing. And I've been doing it ever since. When I got sober, I was married to my wife, Diane. I had 2 little boys. We'd been married almost 10 years when I got sober. And that marriage, well, actually, I've been married 35 years total if you add them all up, you know. But we were married 17 We were married 17 years, and we had 2 little boys, Mike and Craig, and they were 6 and 8 years old when I got sober. And I was having a difficult time being a young man, being a father, being a husband. You know, I had a job. I worked in a little sheet metal shop in Portland. But the only emotions in our household was fear, anger, and disappointment. You know, fear, where's Dad? Where's Dave? You know, disappointment when I'd come home and I'd been drinking and I'd come home late. And then anger, just a lot of anger in our household. And I spent a lot of nights sleeping on our couch. You know, my wife had pretty much turned me into the 3rd child at home. You know, I was unreliable. I couldn't account for 24 hours in a day. I didn't know what was wrong with me, you know. I mean, I would try. I never tried to quit drinking. What I would try to do is postpone my next drunk, you know. And because I remember I came home one night late. My wife met me at the door, Diane, and she says, "You're drunk again." And I said, "No, I'm not." And she says, "Yes, you are." And she went on my truck and she found some empty beer cans under the seat of my truck. She came in and she threw them at me in the hallway in the house. The kids have ran into their bedrooms. She's yelling at me and she starts hitting me in the chest. She says, "I hate you. I hate you." And I says, "If you're going to hit me, hit me." And I reached down and I grabbed her hand, and I hit myself as hard as I could in the eye with her hand, and I knocked myself out in the living room. And when I woke up, the house was dark. Diane's in bed, the boys are in their room, and I crawled on the couch, and I woke up the next morning. I looked in the mirror, and I'd given myself this great big old black eye. Only fight I've ever been in my life. And I go to work, and the guys at work are looking at me at the little sheet metal shop, and I'm kind of keeping to myself, you know. In my mind, I'm rehearsing what I'm going to tell my wife when I get home. I'm sorry, sweetheart, it'll never happen again. And I'm on my way home, and I know I need to make a left turn to go out toward Bourne, Oregon, Damascus. And I made a right turn, and I was right back in the bar. You know, without defense against that first drink. The insanity of alcohol. You know, I didn't know it. You know, I would leave work, I'd try to make it home on time. More than likely, I would stop and have a few beers before I got home. As soon as I got home, I'd run into the house and into the kitchen, I'd open the refrigerator, grab a beer, take a couple of gulps, and then I'd go say hi to my wife so she couldn't smell the first 2-3 beers I had on the way home. You know? I used to have this like 8-10 foot big red garden hose in the back patio, and wife and I would use it to fill the dog dish with water and water the plants on the back patio. And I told my wife one day not to use that hose anymore. I told her I used it to siphon gas out of the truck for the lawnmower, that we couldn't use it for water anymore. But what she didn't know is that it would hold almost a fifth of Southern Comfort. And I'd screw the two ends together and I'd make a big hula hoop out of it. And I'd go put it on a nail out of my shop. And I'd come home from work and she'd go, "You want a Coke?" I go, "Yeah, put a lot of ice in it." And I'd go out of my shop and I'd unscrew that hose and I'd thumb me out some Southern Comfort. Or some days I'd just suck off the hose. I really didn't care, you know. That was a secret. That was a secret I was going to carry to my grave, you know. And it wasn't until I started working these steps and I got into that 4th step and then that 5th step that I mentioned it, that I used to drink liquor out of a garden hose. And once I told somebody, it didn't become a secret anymore. And I could share it in a meeting. And the response I got was people were laughing at me. And you know, I think about it now and it's funny. But back then I was going to take that to my grave. I was so ashamed of myself for drinking like that. You know, I didn't know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know anything about 12 stairs or whatever they were. My last drink was a Sunday morning. I got up and I opened the refrigerator. It was Easter, and I reached in the refrigerator and I grabbed 24 colored Easter eggs and a 6-pack of Budweiser, and I went in the backyard to hide Easter eggs for my 2 little boys. And 2 hours later, my wife was yelling at me, and the kids are crying because I can't remember where I hid the eggs. And that was my last drink, was hiding Easter eggs for my 2 boys. You know, a lot of people get here for lots of different reasons, the courts or jails or worse stuff than that. But I bet you it feels the same on the inside, that pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization of why do I continue to hurt the people who love me the most? You know, that hopelessness. I just figured this is the way I am. I'm going to live this way and die this way, you know. You know, I come up from a good family. I grew up down and went to high school in Whittier, California. You know, good family. You know, parents were always there. Older brother, younger brother. So that morning after my wife's yelling at me, I had made some phone calls and I found out that there was a treatment center that I could go to look at my behavioral problems. And I went into this treatment center in Portland called New Day Treatment Center the next day on Monday. And people were walking around with these blue books and reciting this funky little serenity prayer and talking about these 12 stairs and stuff. And I was scared. I was 34 years old. I've been sleeping on the couch. My wife was about ready to throw me out. And I was scared. But I was a little excited, too, because I thought maybe something would get different. You know, I had that little bit of excitement in me. then the reality hit me, man. I'm in this treatment center. They're talking about alcoholism. They're talking about all kinds of stuff, and I don't know, man. So I called my parents up the next day down in Southern California, and I told my mom, told my dad I was in this treatment center and what was happening at home. My mom's crying, my dad's crying, I'm crying. And my mom says, why don't you give your little brother, my younger brother Mike, a phone call? He's a year younger than me, and I hadn't seen my brother in over a year. So I got his phone number from my mom. I called my brother Mike, and I says, Mike, this is your brother Dave, man. I'm in this treatment center up in Portland, man. I don't know. About ready to get thrown out of the house. They're talking about alcoholism. You know, I don't know what the heck's going on. And my little brother's laughing at me. He thinks this is funny. And I'm finally like, why are you laughing at me, Mike? He says, because 9 months ago, Dave, I did the same thing that you're doing. He went into a treatment center at St. Joe's Hospital in Orange, California. My little brother had been sober for 9 months and I didn't know it. I thank God that he didn't get sober and turn into this evangelist and try to rescue his kid, or his brother. I was a kid, I really was. But what he did say is, why don't I come up and see you? I said, that'd be great. So my little brother drove from Southern California to Portland, Oregon, and on that Friday, we sat in a room together. He had his big book with him. He sat down with me and he started telling me about the disease of alcoholism. He started telling me about what he learned in AA, a little bit about these 12 stairs, and a little bit about higher power. And what happened in that room is I caught alcoholism from my brother. And I didn't know what was wrong with me until he started talking about this disease of alcoholism. And he had it. And I got it. And then he gave me the solution to the problem. Started talking about 90 meetings in 90 days and AA and sponsors and home groups and stuff like that. And I remember, having that thought in my mind of, what do I got to do? What do I got to do? And he kind of told me. And then my brother went back down to California. I finished my treatment and I got involved with AA right out of treatment. But what happened at home was I ruined the party. Because I went into this treatment center to look at my behavioral problems. I came out an alcoholic. And I ruined the party. So my in-laws, they couldn't understand why I wasn't going to the Elks with them on Friday and Saturday nights anymore. Why I couldn't have a beer with them, on the weekends with them. And they didn't want me to talk about AA or higher power or anything. That was your thing. Don't ruin our party. So I had pretty much gotten me a sponsor who I'd stop and see a couple times a week on the way home. We started working these steps and reading this big book. But I was pretty much a closet recovering alcoholic in my own home. But I knew that what you told me was true, that it would kill me. It would kill me. Jail's institution, yeah, I believed you, totally. I had thoughts of dying at times. Just run my truck right into that bridge. I don't have to worry about it, I drank, I like heart and lungs working. That's all I like, man, that effect. I like the effect that was produced by alcohol. So now I'm going to meetings and I found a home group 7 o'clock in the morning that I could go to, and I stayed sober, and about 2.5 years in sobriety, I kind of fell in love with my wife again. Some of the trust came back, and things were going pretty good. Then my wife got sick when I was 4 years sober, and she got violently sick. She was dying, and I would go to meetings, and I would talk about what it's like to have a wife at home. She had a disease called porphyria, and her liver was going out on her, and she would still drink with her sister and her parents and everybody, and it was killing her too at the same time. But they couldn't understand this, and they were doing what they were doing. I was going to meetings. I was trying to take care of 2 kids, and a sheet metal shop that I now bought. Life was really kind of hard, but I kept going to meetings on a regular basis and kept in touch with my sponsor. And I fed her for two years in a row. She couldn't feed herself, and I fed herself for 2 years in a row. And then when I was almost 8 years sober, my wife passed away. And boys were in high school, and the hardest day I ever had in sobriety, I think, is going to Clackamas High School and having to get my boys out of their class to tell them that their mom had died. But what I learned from that is some days life just sucks. But life sucks better sober. And I went to meetings and I didn't drink. And I got some relief. You know, I'd go to meetings and they would call me and I would just break down and bawl. Loudly bawl. And my home group loved me so much that they would let me cry for 3 to 5 minutes. And then they'd put their hand on my shoulder and they'd say, keep coming back. Keep coming back. You know, I haven't done this thing perfectly either. During that time, there was a lady in my morning meeting named Jeannie. And she would take the bus into the meeting, and she was kind of a bag lady, kind of a lady. And she'd come in the meeting, and I would share about what it's like having a wife dying. And she would come up to me after the meeting, and she says, have you prayed to God? Have you asked God for help? Have you asked God for guidance? And I said, yeah. And she would do this like every week to me after the meeting. And I was just blowing her off. Until one day she came up to me after I'd shared, and she says, have you talked to God? I says, yes, Jeannie, last night I talked to God, and I asked God to remove you from my recovery program. I was having what I call a higher power outage at the time. And what happened is next day I went to that morning meeting and Jeannie wasn't there. And I went to the meeting the next day and Jeannie wasn't there. A week later, a month later, and Jeannie never came back to that meeting. You know, our 10-step talks about taking personal inventory. When we're wrong, promptly admit it. Couldn't find Jeannie. Best thing I could do is be nicer to the people who did show up. And I never criticized anybody who tried to give me some help. You know. Tell you, I'll skip forward. I'm in San Antonio, Texas. And I go to this meeting just in the suburbs around San Antonio. And I walk into this big meeting room. And who's across the room? Jeannie. And she looks at me and she goes, hi, Dave. I go, hi, Jeannie. We met. And we gave each other a big hug. We started talking a little bit, and laughing a little bit. And I says, can I talk to you about something? She says, sure. She goes, well, I don't know if you remember this, but I said something really, really nasty to you way back then, and we never saw you after that. I'm really sorry I said that to you. And she says, don't worry about it, Dave. My mom got sick, and I had to run back to San Antonio to take care of my mom. That's why she left. And I thought it was of me. I hadn't seen Jeannie in 17 years when I saw her, Promptly make amends. That was the best I could do. Little stuff like that reminds me of my higher power. I had a little trouble with this higher power when I got here. God to me was like the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy. I go to meetings, I hear people talk about their God and this God and the God in the book and everything, and I really didn't quite get it. I wanted to know if he talked to you or when you prayed and stuff like that. But when I got in this book, there's 2 little passages in there that really changed it for me. One of them, it says, all men of faith have courage. All men of faith have courage. And when I read that, it hit me as like, that's not sissy. All men of faith have courage. That's like Braveheart. That's like He-Man, I like that. I just read it differently. And then right before the 3rd step, it says, it's better that we find God alone than with somebody that might misunderstand. Then I could come up with my own concept of this God. I had my higher power was a group for a long time. I was working through these steps. I turned my will and my life over to my AA group to help show me how to live. So I'm about 15 months sober now, and I'm standing on the banks of the Deschutes River, and I'm fishing. It's a beautiful day, and this little orange raft comes floating down the river, and there's 5 women in it, and they paddle over toward me. And they go, catch any fish? I go, a few. They go, would you like a beer? And I said, no, thank you. And they floated on down the river, and they said, have a great day. And I remember thinking, my big book's up in the truck. There's no meeting to go to here in Maupin. I can't call my sponsor. I remember looking in the hills outside of Maupin there and thinking, this must be when Bill says, being restored to sanity. I said, no, thank you. I remember thinking, okay, God, if we're going to do this, let's go all the way with this. And I just turned my will and my life over to this guy I didn't even understand, standing in the river and mopping, looking at these hills. And I had this feeling, I don't know, it's not a burning bush or nothing like that, but I had a feeling that I'm going to be okay. No matter what happens in my life, I'm going to be okay. And I've carried that with me. Call it faith, you know. I like to call it something, you know. I like to call it maybe love. I have a feeling that I'm never alone anymore, no matter what goes on in my life. So when my wife is sick and my wife dies, and I got to go to Clackamas High School, I sat out in my truck and I said that serenity prayer over and over and over. And I finally got the courage, all men of faith have courage to go into that school and get my boys out and tell them that I love them and this is what happened. And we, you know, got to bury my wife. I had another higher power outage shortly after that. I met a gal in the program who had 5 more years worse sobriety than I did. And 7 months after my wife passed away, we got married. And we got divorced. But what I learned from that is 2 things. I learned that love is grand. Divorce is about 20 grand. And that no matter how spiritually unfit you may think you are, no matter how depressing your life may appear, somebody in Alcoholics Anonymous will marry you. Great events will come to pass. And I didn't have to drink over any of that either, you know. This is a program of change, you know, and we don't know if we can force this change or if it just occurs naturally or what. But I know that that episode with Jeannie, after I kind of shunned her at the meeting, that something happened to me and I changed, you know. I was in Toronto, Canada one year, and there was the World Conference was in Toronto. I got there a few days early, and I decided to go to a meeting in Toronto before the conference. And I go to this meeting, and there's maybe 100 people there. There's a lot of bikes outside, or motorcycles outside. And I walk in, and all these people are milling around, and they sit down at the meeting, and they start talking. And I come to realize that I think this is a gay meeting, because everybody's really happy. And they started talking, and the chairperson talked about how wonderful it is to be a gay person in recovery, not knowing me that the week before was Gay Pride Week in Toronto, Canada. And all these people had stayed around for this for the World Conference, and there was an AA meeting with all these gay people in there. And they were talking about being gay, how wonderful it is, and you know, having so much fun. And I'd get called on. And it was such a big meeting that you had to stand up. And I stood up and I said, "Hi, my name is Dave. I'm a heterosexual alcoholic." "Hi, Dave." Yeah. And I started talking, and this is like halfway through this meeting. And I started talking about how I'm sitting here feeling anxious and uncomfortable, a little resentful, got some fears, because I'm thinking about, while everybody out here is talking, I'm thinking about what I call close encounters and near misses in my life. And it's making me feel real uncomfortable. And I'm talking to this AA group about my fears and my being uncomfortable. And then I said, but I've also come to realize that I have to rely on you people to keep me sober. And that's why I'm here, is because I'm an alcoholic trying to stay sober one day at a time. And I appreciate the meeting, and I appreciate everybody here. I sat down. After that, for the next 40 minutes, people got up and started saying, "Thank you, Dave. I know exactly how you feel when I'm going to a meeting in my small little town, and I'm the only gay person there, and I'm feeling uncomfortable. But the love and tolerance in the rooms kept me there. And something happened to me, and I changed on the inside. And then when I left that meeting, I went outside, I got hugged by 100 gay people. If that don't change it, nothing will, you know. But, you know, I'm not the same person I was when I got sober, you know. I ended up retiring from that little sheet metal shop. I ended up working there for 31 years. I owned it for 17. And then I moved down to Brookings, Oregon, and I drove the little coastal bus down there for 2.5 years. And it was all service connected to the community down there, and I loved it. It was great. I've been able to recreate myself quite a few times. You know, my first sponsor was a gentleman named Ralph Holland. And when I asked him to be my sponsor, he says, I want you to go to 30 meetings in 30 days, get 2 phone numbers at every meeting, and then we'll talk about it. And he gave me a little address book, and I went to 30 meetings in 30 days, and I got 2 phone numbers. Then I continued on for 90 meetings. And he was my sponsor for my first year. When he gave me that little address book, he says, I want you to start dressing nicer. I want you to and cut your ponytail up. I says, why? He says, because I had long hair, pull it back every now and then. He says, you still look like a doper and a drunk. And sometimes we have to change on the outside in order to change on the inside. And he says, you need to clean up a little bit how you look. And he says, and I want to see to what length you're willing to go. And it's like, okay. So I cut my hair real short, and I kept it real short until I got 20 years sober. And then I grew my hair back out again, and I started surfing again. Yeah. And, yeah, I've had a couple other sponsors. Ralph passed away last year. I had a sponsor named Jack Daly from up in my home group in Portland. Jack was my sponsor for over 20 years. He was almost like my dad, to tell you the truth. He died, he was 89 years old. He had 56 years sober. And one day I asked Jack, I go, when's the last time you were out of the United States? He says, World War II, Guadalcanal. I says, we need a road trip, man. So I took Jack, and him and I flew to Ireland for the 50th anniversary of Alcoholics Anonymous in Ireland conference. And Jack was 48 years sober, and I was 18 years sober. And we got to spend 4 days with 1,200 sober Irishmen in Ireland, and dancing jigs and all kinds of fun stuff. So I mean, there's lots of fun things to do in Alcoholics Anonymous too, you know. I go to meetings, but I work these steps so that I might attain some long-term sobriety. And I go to meetings for what's happening with me today, you know. Now I go to meetings essentially because I like the effect that's produced by Alcoholics Anonymous. That's why I come here. I like what it's done for me. Got so much to talk about. My little brother, his sobriety date is 7/7/87. He still has 9 months on me. You know, I love going to meetings with my little brother. You know, we start talking about our family and what it was like. You know, and how there's, like I was saying, there's so many different reasons how we get to AA. I was in a meeting one time down in Sacramento, and a lady was chairing the meeting, and she says, "I'd like to ask a question to the group before we get started here. There's like 30 people in this meeting." She goes, "How many of you come from families where your parents stayed married?" And about 18 people raised their hand. She goes, "Now how many people come from families where your parents have split up or divorced?" And 12 people raised their hand. She says, "It appears to me that you're more likely to become alcoholic if your parents stayed married." Made a point, you know, that there's all kinds of ways that we get here. You know? I mean, yeah, we got some crummy backgrounds and histories of childhood and whatnot. I was telling my wife the other day, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. You know? I'm working on that right now. 7 hours ago, I was camoed out up in the mountains under a tree, hunting with my AA buddies. You know, I've been up there most of the month. Okay, sorry, sweetheart. Sorry. Yeah. But I've got a buddy up there named Bob R. And Bob's my best friend. We've known each other for over 25 years. And when my wife was dying and when she finally died, Bob was there to help me get through that. And we don't have to go through anything alone in Alcoholics Anonymous. And so who would have known that some years later, you know, Bob would get married to a lady named Christy. And she was also class of 88. Bob's class of 88. I'm class of 88. And him and Chrissy were married for about 8 years, I guess, but she got diagnosed with cancer, and she was dying. And Bob and I would go to hunt camp, and him and I would go hunting up in the woods, bow and arrow, and we would talk about what it was like for me to have a wife who was dying, and try to help Bob get through this difficult time that he was going through with Christy. And then Christy died. And it was like, terrible. You never want to see that happen to your best friend. To have somebody real close pass away. I knew what it felt like. Bob was still. So the next hunting season after Christy had died, we were up at hunt camp. Me and Bob were up there by ourselves at that time. We had this little trailer that we were staying in. And we'd been hunting all day, 8 hours out in the woods, and we'd come back all sweaty and camoed up and everything. Made up some spaghetti and stuff, and we're sitting in the trailer, and Bob goes, you want to watch a movie or something? Chrissy still has a movie around here somewhere. I go, yeah, put it in. He puts in this movie. We're sitting there in his little trailer, and I look over at Bob about 45 minutes into this movie, and Bob's crying. And he looks over at me, and I'm crying. And we're watching this movie called The Notebook. I don't know if you guys back there know what that movie's about. It's a real chick flick kind of a thing. And I look at Bob, Bob looks at me and goes, you want me to turn off? I go, no, we got to see how it ends, man. So we sit there and we watch the end of this movie, and when the movie's over, Bob's over there going like this, and I'm going like this. And he goes, what time do you want to get up tomorrow and go kill something? And see, we don't ever have to go through anything alone, And Bob was there for me, and I was there for him. And hopefully we're there for somebody else who has. Some days life just sucks. But life sucks better sober. It really does. So 8 years ago, I'm down in Southern California. My brothers had called me up and said, our high school is having a homecoming kind of a thing where our high school was in existence from 1958 to 1979. So they decided to get the whole school together. And so there's maybe 1,000 students from all the different classes showed up. Yeah, my fault.
It still works.
It still works. Okay.
Like 1 out of every 3 speakers do it.
Okay. So I go down to this high school homecoming. Both my brothers I went to high school with. You go to high school with 7 other classes that you never really see at your reunions and stuff. So I go down there, and that's where I met Kay, down there. And so I see my baseball coach. He's still alive, Mr. Paul. And so I walk up and I go, hi, Paul. He goes, hi, Dave. He goes, how you doing? I go, pretty good. I just retired from sheet metal. And I go, can I talk to you about something? I says, and I saw the expression on his face just changed for a second. I says, I've been a member of Alcoholics Anonymous now for 27 years. And part of my recovery is to make amends to people that I've done some harm to. And when I was a sophomore in high school, I said something to you that I should not have said. And now I see his expression really changed. And I go, I don't know if you remember this, but you were pitching to me, and I was batting, and you were trying to teach me how to bat. And what I said to you was, that's stupid. I can't hit like that. And the next day you sent me down to JV baseball from the varsity. My ego was deflated. My friends stayed on varsity, and I went down to play JV ball. And I says, I want you to know that you are a very good teacher, and that I took that lesson that you taught me throughout my life, and I never tried to criticize anybody who's trying to teach me how to do something. He says, that's not what I remember. He says, what I remember is that when I said that to you, I was so full of myself. I should have never done that to you, Dave. I'm so sorry that I did that to you. And I'm so happy to hear that you took a negative in my life and turned it into such a positive. When I finally retired from teaching from Sierra High School, they asked me the question, is there anything in your teaching history that you wish you didn't do or did over? He says, I thought of you. He says, I'm so glad you said something to me about that. We work these steps, hoping that it helps us, but sometimes it does benefit others. you know, and we just have to be willing to take the effort to do that, you know. I don't know what else to say. My life, like I say, has been, you know, from being married to Diane for 17 years, and then having her pass away, to raising 2 boys into adulthood, you know, and all the difficulties that come with that, to working in a business and you know, owning it and doing good in that, and retiring, and then doing community service down in Brookings. And, you know, like I said, I've been able to recreate myself so many times. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, without Alcoholics Anonymous, I wouldn't have this life. It's not my whole life. In fact, it's only maybe about 25% of what I really do, but it's the first 25% that I really do. You know, when Kay and I got married, I moved down to Folsom. I found a home group down there to go to right away. I found a sponsor down in Sacramento to work with me closer. Jack was getting up on his years. I was a volunteer at the Folsom History Museum, where I was a blacksmith, and I turned that into a little hobby that I still do now, and down at the gallery in Sun River. I'm down there. But Alcoholics Anonymous has given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. You know, from sleeping on that couch to being afraid walking in to the treatment center, to getting my 30-day coin that I still have, to now having a 30-year coin in my pocket. You know, how do you get here? Go to meetings, don't drink between meetings, and don't drink between feelings was a big start for me. You know, and when I was going through that difficult time too, a gentleman came up to me after the meeting. When my wife, I think she had just passed away. He goes, "Who's the newcomer in your life, Dave?" I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Are you reaching out? Are you introducing yourself to anybody? Are you sponsoring anybody?" I says, "No. See, I've been a closet recovering alcoholic. I've been a taker of this program for all these years, and I hadn't given it back. You know, just taking, trying to get through all this drama in my life." He says, "You need to find somebody, because if you don't, you might get drunk." And he was right. I needed to do something like that. You know, I've been this taker of this program. The best way I can explain it, it's kind of like joining Future Farmers of America and never owning your own goat. You know, you've got to own a goat to know what the heck they're talking about. You know, you can see this guy right here with this goat. You can see a couple of goats over there. But until you put a goat in the front seat of your truck, I haven't had that Bill and Bob experience of one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic. You know, I've been close. Until you get a newcomer and you sit them in the front seat of your truck and you have that one-on-one, recovery starts with one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic. You know, and I had to go out and try to find me a goat. And I did, and I've been doing that ever since. I have a wonderful life today, and I owe it all to Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to thank Carrie for asking me to do this. Got sponsees back there. I'm glad they showed up. Some old friends of mine are here. And my wife, who supports me through this whole thing. And she likes going to meetings with me. You know, she gets something out of a lot of them. She knows when there's a bad meeting, too. You know, and I get to talk to her a little bit about it. But, you know, like I say, when life gets really, really good, go to meetings. When life gets really, really difficult, go to meetings. Don't turn your home group into your mother. That was another thing I heard. You know, so I go to lots of different meetings, lots of different places, and I'm a study of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, we don't all come in here and expect to get a trophy, even though we give out coins. This is really a team sport. You know, there's one trophy, and we all get a share in it, and that's the trophy of sobriety. Thank you for listening.
I've asked Valerie to read the 10-step promises.
My name is Valerie, and I'm an alcoholic. And these are the 10th step promises. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time, sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we had been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition.